good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. It is Saturday, so that means it's time for All the Things. I am Monique Duson.
And I am Krista Bontrager, also known as Theology Mom.
Awesome. And this is the show where we talk about all things related to God, life, and the Bible. And we really just get into it.
Yeah.
We just get on in.
The last couple of weeks have been pretty interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So this is us.
Yes.
And you want to introduce Bob?
Sure.
I was going to, but
helping us on the show is the wonderful and magnificent Bob Bontrager.
Hello.
He has no camera tonight.
My camera's not working.
womp.
Womp womp.
But he's here. He really is here.
He's the professional button pusher that makes this all work. And we are grateful for all of his help. We could not do it without him. And we want to encourage you to
share the show.
Yeah, share the show.
I don't know. I just jumped right on in.
That's
See,
okay.
That's what I'm saying. We just get on in.
We'll talk about sharing the show.
Yes, please help us out. Share the show. Tell your friends about it. Like us on Facebook. Get in the chat box and tell us where you're from.
Yes.
Where are you watching from tonight?
Yeah, got the live chat going on the YouTube stream. So if you're on Facebook and you want to head over to YouTube, that makes it easier for us to interact with. Facebook doesn't make it super easy for us to see the comments all the time. So sometimes we miss them until after we go off the air. But going on YouTube is the easiest way to interact with us. And sharing the show is really the best way of helping to support us and support what we're doing here.
Get the word out.
Yes.
Yes. Now, last week.
Let's talk about it.
I feel like I have to spell again.
We don't want to be throttled.
I don't want to. Last week.
We had Pastor Michael here.
Yes. And he was talking about TikTok and how TikTok can be a gateway into PORN.
That's right.
Yes.
And the strong push for the LGBT.
Yes.
Yes. Lifestyle.
That's on TikTok.
Yeah.
And to really be careful, if you are a parent or someone who works with young people, make sure that you're aware of what your kids are doing on TikTok. Really get in there and monitor it. And part of what he was saying is that there's really no way to monitor it because it all goes by so fast. And there's so many, I feel like, different loops and secret ways, like the hashtag.
Yeah.
So the hashtag can be something pretty innocuous.
Sunny day.
Yeah, and that's really like a hashtag for like cutting or self-harm and things like that.
PORN.
PORN. So get in there and look at that video so that you can help protect your young people. This show has been shared a ton of times.
I think this is definitely our most shared show.
Yeah, I had someone today get in there and just write all of the youth leader names of people who work in her church, like all of the youth leaders in her church. And so, like, yes, that's awesome because we want to make sure that as adults who are responsible, we are being responsible with our young people and making sure to help protect them.
Joining us on the chat right now, our friend Keisha from the Atlanta area. Glad to have you there, Keisha. And Kimba is joining us, a frequent viewer. Theo says he's joining us.
From Australia.
Australia?
Yay!
Is this a true story?
Yay.
Australia? Really? Wow.
Yes.
That's cool.
They have huge spiders in Australia. That is what I do know. South Africa and Australia have like the biggest spiders. I'm like, But that's my random knowledge.
It's one of the places that Monique says she'll never go because too many things could happen. You could die.
Well, no, I like Australia. I have a ton of Australian friends.
But there's a lot of poisonous animals.
They do. They have spiders that are just big, like South Africa. So, yes. But so glad that you're watching, Theo.
Our friend Laura Hartley is there. So, Kimba says she likes our jams. Now, we should explain our pre-game show, our jams there are what YouTube allows. So we don't get a copyright strike. Yeah, I'm always like, can't we have Johnny Cash or something?
No.
Like, it must be very generic. Okay. So, you know what? I forgot to send you the video from last week.
Oh. Yes, I am so glad that she did not send that video from last week.
I forgot.
Yes, look when the Lord is on your side. Look what the Lord has done.
Oh, rats. Okay, so if you go to the All the Things Facebook page.
Or if you don't.
I don't know, maybe Bob the Magician can pull it up for us. For the video I posted on Monday of us.
So let's give a little backstory in
Yeah.
the meantime. On Monday, we went to Disneyland and we had an amazing time. It was a lot of fun. And there was video of me on a roller coaster screaming my head off because, hi. Yes.
Yes, that's it. All right. This is what I was going to do. All right, here it is.
But while he's finding that out, in addition to the TikTok video, we also spoke about the coronavirus.
Yes,
and
last
helped
week.
to really put some parameters around that and encourage people not to
Don't panic.
and freak.
Yeah.
Now, I would be a little nervous because Costco doesn't have any more toilet paper, but in
Not sure what
general,
that's about.
keeping our minds and keeping square minds about us so that we're not entering into a panic.
That's right. God's still in control. Hang on, Kiki! Hang on!
Yes, that was the Matterhorn at
Yes.
Disneyland. And I was just glad I didn't fall out. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
that was fun. We had a really fun day.
We did. It was a long, we were there from 7 in the morning until 8 or 9 at night. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. We had a great time as a family.
I couldn't feel my legs the next day.
We're old. I'm old.
I'm young, but I still.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. We went on the new Star Wars ride. That was good stuff. I am not a Star Wars fan, but it was still good.
Yes.
It was really good.
Something about resistance. Yeah.
The dawn of the resistance, the age of the resistance.
Rise of the resistance.
Rise, yes.
It was a 15-minute experience.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. It was really good.
Yeah.
It was good.
And we had a good time.
All right. So let's get in.
What are we doing?
Hey, tomorrow is International Women's Day.
It is.
And so as part of International Women's Day, we thought we would talk with our good friend, Laurie Stewart. She is the president of Women in Apologetics, and she is a former feminist.
Former liberal feminist.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into some conversation about rights and feminism and Christianity. Where does Christianity fit into all of this? Or where does feminism fit in with Christianity?
Yeah.
So, we're going to get into some of that.
And talking about, I think you hit it is just a big issue. And my question is about rights, women's rights. Last week, I did a conversation, or a couple weeks ago, and we were in an environment where I asked that question about what is a right? What does it mean to have rights? And there are all manner of definitions that people put forward. And then I asked, well, where do rights come from? And that led to an interesting discussion. Will they come from the government, or they come from myself, or I'm not really sure. People haven't really thought about it. So this concept that we just throw around all the time. So I think it'll be a good discussion. So let's get Laurie here, fire up the magical machine, and there she is. Hey, Laurie.
Hi, Laurie.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. We're glad to have you here today. So tell us a little bit about yourself and some of your journey into being a liberal feminist.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I was raised in a Christian home, but when I was a teenager, like a lot of teenagers, I started challenging a lot of things that I was taught, especially in the church. And I was really affected by a video or a TV show that I saw. It was around the time of Roe versus Wade. So that was the 70s. And I became an abortion activist at a very young age. And I think that was kind of my segue into the feminist movement. I had been told that, hey, you can do anything you set your mind to. And then as I got a little older, I started realizing that there were some obstacles for women because you're women. And I thought, well, that's not fair. So that fed the fuel. So by the time I got to college, I was really wrestling with who am I? What do I believe? And then I entered liberal academia. And I was challenged by several of my professors in different classes, including my political science class, my Western civilization class, and then my literature class. I would say, combined with joining a sorority and then being in the theater department. So it was kind of a combination of a whole bunch of events that radically shook my worldview. And I decided that I was very compassionate toward people. I believe that we should have a bigger government, that people were too selfish to take care of others. Therefore, we needed to have big government taking care of people. So I called myself a feminist. I, engaged in a pro-choice march. I even called myself a socialist and wondered if I was a communist. Didn't go that far though. So eventually I got married and then had a baby, then found myself as a single mom struggling to make sense of the world and what had happened. Why had my world collapsed? And eventually through a series of events, started going back to church after looking in a whole bunch of different places, not finding answers, looking in Zen Buddhism, worldism, different kinds of faiths and theologies, decided to go back to church and see if I could find the answers. And I found the answers in Christianity and didn't find them anywhere else.
Wow, that's really interesting. I learned some things about
so
you.
Did I.
Oh, okay, good.
So we're going to look at a little clip here. And I know that you've seen this clip before, Laurie, but I want to play part of it for our audience because I think it kind of encapsulates some thinking that's happening in our culture right now about women and where we're at and some of the cultural conversations we're having about women. I think it'll be a good setup for our discussion here. So I'm going to have Bob play this short clip and then we'll come back and talk about it a bit.
Great.
Hey, we're at the Women's March in Washington, D.C., and today we're going to ask the Women's March, how would you define what a woman is? What would you say is the biggest obstacle to equality between men and women today?
I'm always treated differently.
I think the biggest challenge is the mindset of a lot of white men in particular in this country.
I mean, the administration, hands down.
I think there is such a thing as entitlement.
Pads, you can think of a plethora of reasons.
And I see it quite often when the men jump in front of me to lift things or to back a truck onto a trailer or anything like that.
There's just a big struggle for respect.
In employment and assignments that were given and pay that was given.
I think there's no equal pay at all.
Women have to work so much harder to get to the point that men can easily get to.
How would you define what a woman is?
How would I define what a woman is?
Oh my God.
I think a woman, that's a trick question.
Oh, wow.
I think a woman is anything that she wants to be defined as.
Well, that's a good question. Let me think about that.
A human being.
She's an individual.
A woman is powerful. A woman is really the creator of our society. Without women, we won't even be able to reproduce the planet.
We're selling uterus pins, but that doesn't mean that if you have a uterus, you're a woman, or if you don't have one, you're not a woman.
So I think a woman is someone who chooses to express themselves.
We can express our womanhood in so many ways that it is just unfathomable.
Well, can be in the feminine way, but also can be in a non-binary way as well.
Wow. How would I define what a woman is? There's so many aspects.
A woman is love and strength and power.
In a short interview, I'm not even sure how to answer that.
A woman is anyone that identifies as a woman. Simple as that.
I think a woman is if you identify as a woman, if you want to be a woman, then you're a woman.
Okay. There it is.
Yes, there is that. And that's just like a brief snippet into some of the things that are currently happening and the thought processes that are happening in our culture regarding gender and sex and all of those things. And is there anything such as gender, or is it only sex? And is this binary or non-binary? And, so there's a lot of conversations happening in this area of womanhood and feminism.
Well, and I think that maybe we should talk about how contemporary feminism fits with critical theory, because that's a theme that we hit a lot on the show.
Yeah.
And maybe Monique, maybe you could speak to that a little bit, and then we'll get Laurie in the conversation too of so we talk a lot about critical race theory. We talked a couple weeks ago about queer theory. This is sort of another big aspect of critical theories, which is feminism. What in the world is going on here why are they having so many problems defining what it means to be a woman?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I know what it means to be a woman. I am me. No. I think part of it, even before we look at things like critical theory, are just the idea of postmodernism and this idea of truth, and that there is no real truth. It's all relative. So to be a woman is to be as fluid and to be anything, because there's nothing concrete to really hold it to.
So we're not going to tie it to anatomy.
We're not tying it to my uterus or to my biology or anything like that. It's what I feel. It's what I think. And that can be so different than what you feel and think. So I can be a woman and you can be a woman, or you can be a woman and I can be something completely different that may not be a male.
Can you be a hippopotamus?
That's coming, so, and I mean, I'm being serious. Like there's this idea of no absolute truth. And because there's no absolute truth, it's all very fluid. Now, when you look at things like critical theory in that, they're now bringing in this idea that, well, I am now oppressed. And these are the categories that are oppressive or oppressing me because I don't necessarily ascribe to the thought process that has historically been there. Okay. So because I don't ascribe to like this historic Christian thought that we would ascribe to, we are seen, or you would be you would be seen as someone oppressing me because I don't ascribe to your thought. So critical theory continually looks at who is being oppressed and who is the oppressor.
Okay.
And if I'm falling in the minority position, so to speak, I would be the one who is being oppressed. How am I doing, Laurie? Help me out, sis. Amen or no?
No, I think you're absolutely on the right track. I think it goes even further. I think we started to run into some difficulties with the post-modernism movement, and we had post-truth. Truth is relative, but we've kind of moved into that. We're now in what some people are calling a post-truth era, meaning people aren't necessarily denying that there's truth, but the truth doesn't matter. So we have elevated feelings over facts. So I think that you're kind of seeing a conflation of all of this at the same time, as evidenced by that short video clip that you showed. I think if you're going to buy into this idea that a woman can be whatever you want it to mean, and it's whatever you feel. If you feel you're a woman, then you are a woman. We have, in fact, elevated feelings over facts. And that's really dangerous place for us to be, because we actually don't live that way every day. I mean, we actually have facts, and we don't eat rat poison because we feel like eating it. We know factually that it's harmful for us, and so we don't eat it. We'll eat sugar because we know we can eat sugar. It's not going to be as harmful, although we don't want to eat too much of that either these days, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we see that's reflected in that video. And if you're walking in this ideology and someone starts confronting you with questions, you can see the hesitation in some of their answers, because they know what the politically correct answer should be, but they realize it doesn't really make sense either. And
they said, that's a trick question. What is a woman? And I never thought I would live in the age where it'd be so complicated to define a boy or a girl. Like, it has become, I think it is one of the questions of the cultural moment we're in right now. And it is, but, that's a trick question. Really?
Yeah. And I think if we allow I'll say the women's rights movement to move in this direction, which is the Women's March is taking it in this direction. If you look at their agenda, who supports them, what they really stand for, they don't stand for women. They stand for a very radical, leftist, socialist, progressive political agenda, which has nothing to do with advancing, I'll say, rights for women in the traditional sense. It's advancing something else. As soon as we got away from what does it mean to be a woman is just a female human being. I mean, why can't we just say that succinctly? Well, because then we're going to hurt some people who are confused about their gender and want to be a different gender than they were born with. And I think we need to be compassionate for people who are struggling with gender identity issue or gender dysphoria. I think it's a problem we can't ignore, and the church needs to have more compassion for people who are struggling with this. I don't think we've done a good enough job, but that doesn't mean that we play along and ignore facts and ignore science and ignore biology, because I think that it just we're losing our sanity.
Well, before we go down too far down this road, which I think is a good road to go on, I do have a question. Do you still consider yourself a feminist today?
I don't. In fact, I describe myself as a former liberal feminist. And part of there's several reasons. So let me give you a couple of big ones. One, the feminist word, feminism, has become a very loaded word, and it has different meanings for different people. It's become politically charged, economically charged. It's associated often with sexual liberty, abortion. They call it, your personal autonomy rights, but that's really not what it's about. And so I don't follow that camp anymore. Second of all, feminism really is an ideology. And I think whenever you start talking about any of the isms, any ism it's a philosophy, it's an ideology. And I have radically shifted my own ideology, if you will, and accepted and embraced a biblical worldview. So I no longer look at the world through the lens of a victim, even if I have been a victim in the past. And I was a victim of assault myself. But I don't look at myself as a victim and see the world through that lens. I look at myself as a victor, because now as a child of God and a Christ follower, mightier is he that is in me than is he that is in the world. So I have a greater strength in me. And so I walk in that victory. I no longer find my identity in that, but I find my identity in being a child of God and a follower of Christ.
Do you think the word feminism or being a feminist, do you think that word has changed at all since the 70s? Like recently I saw the movie RGB. It was about the life story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It was actually a pretty good movie. I actually really enjoyed it. And it was about kind of the late 60s, early 70s struggle for women's kind of equality in the work environment and that sort of thing. It was a very thought-provoking movie. And I thought, well, in that sense of feminism, I get that. I identify with that. But now feminist seems to be a very pejorative word, almost an synonym for a woman who advocates for reproductive rights or abortion. I don't know. I struggle with the term, but I'm wondering if the meaning has changed.
Well, originally, really, feminism and the feminist movement, gosh, it goes back a long time, but it goes back even before the 70s. In America, we talk about first wave feminism, and first wave feminism is usually associated with the suffrage movement, where women were fighting to get the right to vote, which we eventually passed the 19th Amendment around 1919. And so we were fighting for the right to vote, fighting for the right to own property, inheritance rights, to be seen as a person of value, right? And that's really what the right to vote did, is give us a right to speak with our vote. Our vote is our voice, and recognizing that we have value and we have something to say. So I think that the feminist movement kind of historically has come from a time where women were treated as property. Women didn't have voting rights. They didn't have legal rights. At least not as we know them today. And so it was fighting for that, which I think there was a good association with those agendas. In fact, there were many women who were Christians who were involved in fighting for the right for women to vote. But then you had the second wave feminism, which took place in the 60s and 70s, which is what you're talking about. It kind of had a two-pronged focus or agenda, if you will. One was the economic, which is what you're referring to. Hey, we have a right to be in the workforce. We have a right to equal pay for equal work. And hey, put me down for those things. We have a right to education. We shouldn't be denied education just because of our gender. But the other agenda that came along during the same time was this, you call it reproductive right, it's personal autonomy, sexual liberty. Hey, if men can be free to express themselves sexually and have multiple partners, women should too. We started to associate sex and sexual freedom and sexual liberty with power, because women had historically had some problems with mistreatment and violence and discrimination and, let's say, some oppression. Women struggled for power. So they sought power through sexual liberty. And we know that actually has been disastrous for women. Here we are today. Some would say we're in the third wave or even fourth wave of feminism. And we see the deconstruction of even what it means to be a woman. And there's a lot of very angry women who are speaking out, not just in favor of abortion, saying, hey, we have a right to choose, but glorifying abortion, that it's a good thing, that abortion has been their source of freedom. They were not tied down early in life because they had this right to abortion. So yes, I think that we have strayed from the word. I think the word's had some difficulties from the beginning, just knowing how to associate it. If I'm going to talk about the issues, I prefer to frame it in terms of, women's rights and then discuss it from that place, because I think it's easier to have a conversation and find something that's in common and good and noble about it. Whereas the feminist movement seems to have really been derailed by a radical leftist social agenda.
Now, when you say you'd rather talk about it in relation to like women's rights as opposed to feminism and things like that, like I even get confused as to, well, what are the women's rights that we're trying to advocate for? And because I feel like it all gets clumped together. Like you're saying, like some people are looking for sexual or gender rights, or some people are looking for rights in the workforce. Some people are looking for rights in terms of their body and what they can and cannot do. The right to vote. There are many rights that come up. And so what does that phrase even mean?
Mm-hmm. So then we ask that question. I mean, it leads somewhere. I think just using the word feminism, we have no idea what someone means when they talk about feminism. When women call themselves a Jesus feminist or a Christian feminist, I'm like, I have no idea what that means to you. That's such a confusing and sometimes contradictory terms. I want to learn how to be a clear speaker, a clear communicator. I don't want to be communicating and using words that are confusing. Now, having said that, you're right. I mean, even women's rights, what rights are we talking about? But then you can ask, are you talking about the right to vote, the right to education? Are you talking about the right to kill your unborn child? Right, don't put me down for that. But if you're talking about the right to education and the right for better treatment and violence against women, put me down. I'm in favor of those kinds of rights. So I think we can have a better defined, a clearer conversation about the women's rights issues when we start talking about in terms of rights. When I travel and speak on human rights, women's rights, I actually start with human rights. That's where I begin the conversation, that if you're going to talk about women's rights, we have to first figure out, well, where do rights come from, right? And we are human beings. And so women's rights actually come from human rights. And so what are human rights? What does it mean to be human? And where do we get our rights? And so that probably is another segue into another question.
No, actually, that's good. Keep on going, because that's true. What is a right and what are rights? Where do they come from?
Yeah. So rights come from someplace, right? Because a right is an entitlement that we are claiming. Historically, it really had to do something more along the lines of like a moral obligation, but we've changed it now to mean legal entitlement. So let's just kind of use how the word is used today in terms of legal entitlements. So rights have to come from someplace. So where do they come from? Well, they can come from God or they can come from man. And if they come from God, which God? If they come from man, who influences the man-made laws? And so Christianity historically, especially in America, we took a biblical approach. Our founding fathers took a biblical approach, even if they weren't all Christians, and most of them were. They still had biblical literacy and biblical values and ethics and morals. And so that influenced the laws that we saw implemented here in our country, especially in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, and then later our amendments. And so our rights here in America, as we're talking about legal entitlements, come from the man-made laws. But what's affecting and influencing those laws, that's what really matters. So if we're going to talk about human rights or women's rights, and we're going to pass laws to protect women from violence or discrimination, we have to start with, well, what's the lens that we're going to look through in order to determine what kind of laws we need and why. And I think Christianity is the only one that offers a solid, consistent reason for valuing women and protecting women from unfair treatment, from what we call invidious discrimination, and of course, violence as well.
I want to ask a follow-up to that, but first I want to go over to the chat. Our friend Amy Davis says women couldn't get a business loan without a man's co-signature as recently as the mid-1980s. Feminism used to fight for literal equality between genders, no longer. So that's, the reality of an aspect of rights that we're talking about. But when you're making the assertion, Laurie, that the founding fathers of our country had the Christian worldview kind of in the background for them. It was sort of their operating assumptions. Now, some people are going to say, well, they were inconsistent. They set up a system that benefited men, that they weren't, if Christianity was in the background, then why from the beginning weren't women treated equally? Why didn't they have property rights or inheritance rights and those sorts of things? So some people would say, well, see, Christianity's rigged from the get-go to be benefiting men and devaluing women. And we see this played out in the founding fathers. How would you begin to talk about that?
I think those are very fair questions, very fair. And they're good questions we should be asking. I think what we see at the founding is a good basis for the laws, because they had a biblical approach to them, valuing humanity. All men are created equal in the eyes of God, and have certain inalienable rights. There's a question of, well, did they anticipate all human beings, or was it just men and women were excluded from that? But that's, conversation for another day. But they set up a system of government based on biblical values. Now, the question is, how was it applied? Back then, I believe that those biblical values were applied in a way that was based on tradition. And we have seen historically, tradition has been, our societies in general, Western societies have been male dominated, women not given the right to vote, or maybe the right to education, the right to own property, things like that, inheritance rights. And so there are traditions that have been passed down. So I believe that at the founding, we were still stuck in some of those traditions. Now, the good thing is, because women did fight for a voice, we fought to be heard so that we would be respected and treated better than we were in the past, that we were given the right to vote, which gave us a good voice. So we were actually able to come and have a seat at the table and have something to say and eventually be respected. That's a process that takes time, which has led to where we are today. I think women, having contributed now, having been educated, owning property, having a voice, having a right to vote, women have been able to come and shed light on some of these problems that, quite honestly, I think the men are a little bit oblivious to, or ignored it, or they facilitated it. So I think that women getting involved in government, politics, leadership has been a very good thing. So long as we don't get hung up on power structures, because as soon as we start grabbing for power, people are going to get grumpy and gray, and that doesn't go anywhere, because then it's just a struggle. And if you're going to take God out of the equation, now it's just survival of the fittest, which usually is survival of the rich, the strong, and the wealthy. Or I already said wealthy, the healthy.
That's good. That's really good. And nobody needs grumpy. No one needs grumpy. Okay, so a couple of times you've mentioned the Christian worldview. And my question is, what is it about the Christian worldview that you see offers like more dignity to women?
Yeah. So in terms of valuing humanity first, because that's how I start the question. When I teach on women's rights, I start with the question of human rights and building the case that women are human beings. And I think in general around the world, we agree that human rights are important. And if human rights are important, why are they important and where do they come from? I mean, even people in Islamic countries will talk about women's rights. Now they define it differently, right? Based on their God-given law. So they define it differently. So when you start comparing, this is what my recent master's thesis addresses. I did a comparative analysis of the treatment of women, looking through the lens of the law to examine different worldviews, specifically different religions. So I examined the laws in Saudi Arabia, which are influenced by Islamic law because they have Sharia. It's considered by many to be the purest form of Islam. It's the birthplace of Islam, with Sharia, Mecca and Medina having the two holy sites there in Saudi Arabia. I looked at the laws there. I looked at the laws in India, because India historically has been heavily influenced by Hinduism. I examined the laws in China, because China is considered the most atheistic country in the world. So how are their laws on protecting women from violence and invidious discrimination? And then I looked at the US, and specifically at the founding, because we had the historic founding of our country was based on Christian principles, biblical values. And so based on those values, we have seen a progression of protection of women's rights, if you will, giving women the right to vote. I mean, boy, in Saudi Arabia, they just recently got the right to drive. I mean, that just happened recently. So they're still a little bit behind, but they are making some progress. And I think it's because women are getting involved and women are having a voice around the world. And we're standing up and talking about the things that have been unfair, that have happened to women, whether it's violence, whether it's sex trafficking, abuse, domestic abuse. There are things that have happened, and we want to call attention to those things. Not highlighting that women are victims and grasping that identity. That's not how we want to have the conversation, because then I'm glorifying my victimhood. And I think there's no glory in that at all. I want to be victorious and be an overcomer. I'm a survivor. I don't want to be seeing myself and have other people viewing me as a victim. There's no strength in that.
So from a Christian worldview standpoint, do you see kind of the image of God as being one of the distinguishing features of our perspective that grounds those human rights, and that's kind of different than these other approaches in Islam and Hinduism and atheism? I mean, let's dig a little bit deeper into that and what you see there as the distinctive of human rights rooted and grounded in the dignity and in the image of God.
Yeah, great question. So I think as we look around the world, as I mentioned, there's kind of this unanimous opinion that human rights are important. So why are they important, and what do we mean by that? If we look at how they're applied in other worldviews, we don't see universality and inherency and necessarily a higher law. And that's one of the keys to the United Nations actually established their United Declaration of Human Rights based on higher law, that there was a law above the law, which is God-given law, that we answer, our man-made laws answer to God, and that these rights are universal, meaning they apply to everyone, and they're inherent. It's something we're just born with. It's not something that we earn, not something we deserve. And so the Christian worldview is the only worldview that supports that. No other worldview does. In any other worldview, if you remove, for example, if you remove God from the equation, like in China, you now have if you have no God who's given laws, what are you left with? You're left with a materialistic worldview, which is, we can look at examples of that in neo-Darwinism. That's like more recent for us. That's survival of the fittest, the strongest. And so the weak are not going to have value. What about the disabled, the infirm, those that are in comas? What about the unborn?
Well, and if there's no God, if you have materialism, if there's no God, then rights just come from the government. And they can be taken away at any time. If majority rule, if you're a democracy, the rights can be taken away. But if you're living in a dictatorship, they can be taken away quite easily without any say. And so the worldview component does matter.
So we ask ourselves, why is that in Christianity? Why is it that we see the better treatment of human beings? Now, I'm not saying perfect, because we're not perfect. And we see many imperfect examples. And we see examples of people mistreating others in the name of Christianity historically. So we can't ignore that fact. And I'm not looking at this with rose-colored glasses. I know that historically we've got some problems and we have to deal with those. But I don't want to approach it from a shaming standpoint that now somebody has to, from 200 years ago, needs to make amends to me. So I'm looking at what are those things that are giving us reasons, solid reasons for believing that the dignity and value of women or all human beings is important. And we only see that in the Christian worldview. And that is Imago Dei, as you mentioned, that we are created in the image of God. And that's what it tells us in Genesis 1:26 and 27, for example, that God created them, male and female. He created them in his image. So when God created us in his image, that gave us our dignity, value, and worth. Because think about this. If someone paints a painting, what gives it the value? Well, a couple of things. One, whoever the artist was. And so the more famous the artist, the more powerful, or they are actually going to have more value to their signature and to their painting. So it's what someone's willing to pay for it as well. If someone's willing to pay more for a painting, it's going to be worth more. I'm trying to sell my house right now. I've been trying to sell my house for 2 years. I think I have an idea how much it's worth, but nobody's paying that. So I've had to drop my price like 4 times and still have it on the market. So it's what the value of my house is what someone is willing to pay for it. What are we worth? Well, we can look to the scriptures, especially the New Testament, and focus on the Gospels. God paid for us through his son, Jesus, dying on the cross, shed his blood for us to purchase us back. Because when sin came in Genesis 3, it separated humanity from God. But he didn't leave us separated. He made a way for us to come back, and he purchased us with the blood of his son that he sent to come and die. But it's a gift that he offers us, not because we deserve it, but he gives it to everybody, but we do have to receive it. And that's what Christians do, is we receive that gift. We believe the gift. We believe the work, what Jesus did on the cross, and what that means for us in terms of offering the forgiveness of our sins, and that we've been purchased and we've been redeemed. And that gives us enormous value and dignity and worth. And that's for all humanity, women, men, all races, whether you're able, disabled, healthy, unhealthy, unborn. That's what gives value, dignity, and worth to all of humanity.
Yes, and amen. Now, question, are there any parts of feminism that you see actually aligning with scripture in the historic Christian worldview?
Well, I think historically, fighting for the rights to vote, property rights, really those were all the right to education. That's just treating women like a human being that we are. So I think those have been good. But more recently, when we look at like the second and the third wave feminism, or fourth, if you want to get into that, we've seen that women's rights has started to become something else. It started to mean sexual liberty. I have the right to do whatever I want to with my own body, including the right to end the life that is growing inside of me, the abortion issue, or reproductive rights, as Krista called it. So there are some things that are now have moved beyond what I think were good to begin with. And because of that, because we're deconstructing words, that's why I just choose not to use the feminist word. And I choose to just discuss women's rights, and then which rights are we talking about?
So we got a couple of great comments here, Laurie. I want to try to work in and make sure that we look at Theo, who is watching us in Australia, says, I think we have to separate between equality and sameness. I think that's a really important point because men and women are different and we need both. Like, we don't want to fall into a vision for affirming women's rights where we shame men. Like, this isn't about exalting one and pushing someone else down. This is about us kind of co-ruling and reigning the earth together and helping one another. Our friend Amy has a thoughtful comment. She says, I observe that for women's rights to progress, we need to have godly men partner with us and advocate on our behalf in order to validate this cause in the eyes of others. Example of the right to vote or women in ministry. And I think that's important.
I like that a lot. I say that a lot, like, especially when we talk about things pertaining to race. Like, you know, it takes both sides to present why we should be talking about things about race. And I think it's the exact same thing when we talk about like women's rights. It takes both sides presenting a clear like reason for why we should have certain rights and why certain things should be moving forward. Because I think the voice of both. It's not that we're pitted against each other. Like, now, because I'm going to talk about women's rights or I'm going to talk about race from a certain perspective, that it puts us at odds. No, we should be joining hands and linking arms and moving together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I actually was just like flipping through my scripture here. So, you know, it talks about in Genesis 1, you know, when right after it discusses how God created men and women, he actually gave them dominion over the earth, and we were supposed to rule it. So it seems to me from Genesis 1, when we really unpack it, that God meant for men and women, husbands and wives, males and females, to labor together. That doesn't mean we have to do everything together, but I think that there is something wise in us being able to work together for the common good.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean to negate it. I think that one of the errors I see some Christians fall into is almost this sameness. You know, that the sexes are interchangeable, or we don't really need men or something. And it's like, no, that's we don't want to fall into that error either. We equality, yes, but not sameness. Equality, right, but different, and appreciate each other's differences and what each of the sexes brings to. I would say that the Great Commission. That the Great Commission is kind of the great partnership under the new covenant to restore that mission of co-ruling and reigning the earth together that was there at the creation and then corrupted at the fall. Now Jesus commissions men and women both to be his disciples, and both men and women to bring the good news to the ends of the earth. And so now we do that together as a project, together as we bring Christ's rule and reign to everything on the earth until he comes back. So,
yeah, I think Jesus' teaching was pretty radical, because we see the story of Martha and Mary when Mary chose to sit at the feet of Jesus, which was typically a place that was just reserved for the rabbi's disciples, which would be like all men, not a place for women. And Jesus rebuked Martha, because Martha's kind of saying, hey, tell her to get in her place. She needs to be helping me in the kitchen. That's really her place. And Jesus said, no, she's chosen better. And so I think, and he's not saying, hey, you know, women shouldn't do anything domestic. I don't think that's what Jesus was saying, but he was saying, hey, look, you women have the right to come and learn as well. And we can learn things that have to do with God. We can study theology, we can study the scripture. And of course, that means opening up education for women as well, not to mention teaching.
Yeah.
That's a whole other subject.
I want to ask you, we kind of touched on atheism or materialism and how it's, you know, works out the rights issues. I wonder if we could kind of circle back briefly to your research on these other positions of looking at women's rights in Sharia law or in Hinduism? Maybe you could just kind of briefly orient us to those conversations.
Yeah. So, well, my thesis goes pretty deep into these subjects, and I focus specifically on areas of law that dealt with violence and discrimination, because there's just not enough time to unpack absolutely everything in terms of like workplace discrimination, the right to vote. I touch on harassment, but I pretty much focus on domestic violence, violence against women, domestic violence, rape. I discuss female genital mutilation, just to give a few examples of what I touch on and how the different countries treat those subjects and then why. So we see if you just examine the laws, it's interesting you brought up China first. So China purports to have laws that would seem to promote the equality of women. But when you actually look at how it is in practice, it's not consistent with what they're articulating. And I think when you understand the nature of communism and how propaganda is a very essential element of communism, then you understand why there's such a disconnect, that they may have laws that purport to improve the treatment of women and equality of women, when in fact, in practice, it's not happening. So I think that that's important. Same thing when you look at Hinduism. Historically, they have a caste system. That's a critical part of Hinduism. And so women were not valued. Lower class women were certainly not valued. And so they place a hierarchy of value of different human beings depending on your caste system. Now, very recently, women, I say like in the last 100 years, women have been given the right to education and to vote. And so women have made some progress in India, but it's not rooted in Hinduism. It's rooted on the Christian, I would argue it's rooted in the Christian influence of the laws. In fact, it's kind of interesting when it comes to family laws in India, they have 3 sets of laws. They have laws for Hindus, laws for Muslims, and laws for Christians. They actually have 3 different sets of laws. So I find that interesting. So because we actually see a Christian influence, and probably comes from colonialism, we see some advancement in women's rights. That's not to say they've done it perfectly, just like Americans haven't done it perfectly either. We still have a lot of room for improvement, but I would argue that Christianity offers the best hope for women. Even if Christians haven't always done the treatment of women well and the best that they can do, Christ is our hope, not men.
That's so good. I love how you say that, Laurie, is Christianity offers the best hope for women. It's not that we've done it perfectly because we are sinners, but the framework and the worldview itself has led to better outcomes for women. And I think what's interesting to me about the founding fathers of our country, that because Christianity was in their worldview, it was sort of their working assumptions, even though they themselves acted on tradition and kind of working in protecting or giving more rights to men and women. The nobility of what they built was robust enough because it was founded on Christian principles that we were able to get to the right destination eventually. It just took a little while.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, Laurie. This has been a very fascinating discussion. I hope it's really helped to equip our viewers with some answers and some understanding about feminism and hey, I've made my thesis freely available for everybody to read. And I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes for everyone.
Oh, great. Because I could not unpack everything. I'm hoping people will build on the research that I did and take it and run with it, expand it. But you can just look up for my blog, Laurie Stewart. I'm on Blogspot, Women of Intelligent Faith. Don't look at the wrong blog. There is another Laurie Stewart, which is totally not edifying. That would not be my blog. Okay. So look for mine, which is Women of Intelligent Faith.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie, very much.
I wish I wore my denim and jacket so I could have been like a triplet.
We could have been
joined
triplets.
the twinsies. Yeah, next time.
All right, take care.
All right, God bless you guys.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, that was good.
That was good.
I learned some things. I don't know. Do you see like some correlations here between some of the things that Laurie was talking about in critical race theory? Like I was seeing all kinds of connections between those two things.
I do, but I think I was just more absorbing and really listening and learning. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
We'll have to unpack some of that because I could totally see some overlap. Well, I think, first of all, like this question about the founding fathers. And
I thought about that, yes.
You know, that they laid the intellectual framework for equal rights and human rights, but they didn't
act on it.
They didn't execute it the right way. They were acting on tradition. I like how she said that. That was really helpful for me. So they had the right worldview and the right framework, but then they combined it with their traditions and what was familiar to them. And so they didn't carry it all the way through. But we eventually arrived there because of the robustness of the framework. Yeah. So I don't know. For me, I was clicking on that.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that with things like slavery. All men are created equal, but yet I'm owning a slave and he's not equal to me at all. Yes, I can definitely see that. I was thinking with, you know, more of the different waves of feminism. Yeah. Thinking of the different waves of civil rights and how those things are argued and fought for and things like that. And so you see taking maybe like Martin Luther King, for an example, being that civil rights era and things like that. And now what people are arguing for today for reparations and for, you know, separate spaces. And what does this era of rights look like when we're talking about race and things like that?
Yeah, I could totally see that. That'll be fun to kind of think through a bit more.
Yes.
All right. Let's have a reminder here about our upcoming trip to Phoenix.
Yes. Yay.
We're coming for you, Phoenix.
We are.
It's in just a few weeks. It's going to be at the Arizona Community Church in the Phoenix area. Is that
in Tempe?
Yeah. And it's going to be April 3rd and 4th.
Yes. And it's called Change for the Better. You're going to do 2 plenary talks.
Yes.
And then together we're going to do our a breakout session called The Great Awakening.
Yes.
And it's really speaking to evangelicals and the church regarding the dangers of critical race theory.
Yeah. So I'm doing 2 plenary talks. And then there's someone else who's doing a talk
Brianna,
well, that you know.
Yes.
So.
We were actually RAs together at Biola.
Okay.
Yes.
So it will be a great time. I'm looking forward to meeting some new friends in Phoenix. So if you live in the area, Phoenix, Tempe, Gilbert, all of those, come find us at Arizona Community Church.
Yes, even if you're up in Yuma or, you know, out there somewhere far away, come on down. And I think the conference is relatively inexpensive. It's like $45.
Yeah.
And I think there are hotels in the area, so you can make a little trip out of it.
Yeah, it would be
April 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, it's a Friday evening and Saturday event. So we are looking forward to that. Okay, are you ready for the next thing?
Stephen Furtick. Yes.
Stephen Furtick. I didn't even know who this guy was until fairly recently. Apparently he's famous.
I don't know why he's famous. I think he might have been a player of
like
some sports.
Yes. Professional sports player.
Maybe football, maybe baseball. Yeah. I can't really tell you. I don't think it was basketball, but there it is. Yes. And he has a church on the East Coast. I'm not sure what the church name is, but it's a very popular church.
So this week, he said this.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate.
And
but
it kind of broke Twitter. So we're going to play the clip, and then we're going to talk about it.
16 verse 7, he said, I tell you the truth. I know you're mourning. I know you're sorrowful. I know you don't want me to leave you. But I tell you the truth. It is for your good that I am going away. How could you say something like that, Jesus? How could you say it is good if you go away? We followed you. We trusted you. And now you're leaving us. No, I am not leaving you. I am changing forms. So I am not leaving you. I'm just changing locations. God said I didn't walk away. God said I'm working in this season. God said it doesn't matter who changed their mind about you.
Okay, there it is. Okay, so Stephen Furtick, there is the clip. That wasn't the greatest clip that I picked there, and I'll have to rescreen that next time. Looked like somebody was filming their computer monitor. Sorry about that. Okay, so a lot of people are probably wondering, like, what in the world is the big deal with this clip? So let me try to break it down, because it was all over Twitter this week that Stephen Furtick is a heretic.
Yes.
And this was the clip that they were playing. And I'm sure some people were like, huh?
Womp womp. Yes. Because
like,
if you don't...
how is this a heresy?
Yes. I've actually, now that I think about it, I've heard this preached before in a very similar way, and would have never thought, oh my gosh, that's heresy. No, that's good preaching. He left so that, it would be for my good. Yeah.
He was jumping.
Well, even beyond that, like what he was saying was like, well, he's leaving for my good.
Yeah.
There's something in it that's good for me.
Yeah.
So despite the physical antics and elements behind that, I don't think people understand what people were up in arms about, saying it was heresy.
Yeah. So, our friend Laura says that's from Elevation Church. That's the name of Stephen Furtick's church. His church produces a lot of the most popular worship music alongside Bethel and Hillsong. Oh, that's good to know.
They do. They're like in the top 3.
Oh, okay.
It is Bethel, Hillsong, and Elevation.
Now, Theo's giving the spoiler alert. This is the modalism heresy. So we're going to kind of break that down a little bit here. Oops, kind of went the wrong direction. There we go. All right. So modalism. Now, the key word to listen for in the clip is when he says that I'm changing forms. Jesus says, I'm going away and I'm changing forms. And now I'm going to live in you. That's kind of the big, hairy problem, because modalism is a very ancient heresy. And so we want to be careful about how we think and how we talk about the Trinity. Now, if people have watched my channel for any period of time, they know that I have a strong emphasis on historic Christianity. What have Christians historically believed? And so the Trinity is the foundation of our faith. Without the Trinity, we don't have Christianity. So we got to be clear about what we believe. So modalism is the idea that the persons of the Trinity represent 3 modes, or kind of 3 ways of revealing themselves. They're not coexisting persons. They change modes. It's almost like changing your shirt. Like today I got my denim jacket on, and maybe tomorrow at church I'll wear my suit. And then I'm going to go to work on Monday, and maybe I wear my black pants with a different jacket. Okay. So I'm still me, but I have different forms. I have different ways of appearing. So what we see in the Old Testament is God appears as the Father. And then in the Gospels, he appears as the Son. And now God appears as Holy Spirit who lives in you. 3 different modes. So this is the ancient heresy of modalism. Now, I have this little handy dandy illustration here. Now I'm going to show the illustration for the historic Christian view of the Trinity. So this is a very ancient symbol. So we have God in 3 persons. So God is the Father, God is the Son, God is the Spirit, but they're not the same. The Father is not the Son. This is the problem with modalism, is it leaves off that little outer circle there. The Father is not the Son, the Father is not the Spirit, and the Son is not the Spirit. So it's not, God's not changing his shirt. He's not appearing in a different way. It's 3 persons, one God in 3 persons, is how we talk about the Trinity. So is this a heresy? This is the $64,000 questions. Mm-hmm. This is what people want to know. Is this heresy? Technically, yes, it is. Our friend Amy says Jesus is not the same as the Holy Spirit. Yep, you nailed it. That's right. So modalism is shape-shifting deity. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Very good, Amy. And I think that when we think about this, technically, the words that Stephen Furtick used, we would say, are outside of the realm of orthodoxy. But am I ready to call Stephen Furtick a heretic? No, because I don't know his motivation. I don't know anything about him. For all I know, he just needs a seminary class.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, people are quick to judge.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't give you an ounce. Like, you don't have a second to reconsider.
Yeah.
Like, they're right there.
No
to
mistakes
get on
allowed.
you. No. Yeah. And it could be like, we have a chat we did with Mike Gurney about preachers and pastors not going to seminary and how there's been such a decline in seminary attendance or enrollment. And maybe it's that he doesn't know. Maybe no one is really in his corner saying, hey, let me pull you to the side a little bit and tell you the truth about how you should be thinking about this, about how not just should you be thinking about this, but how the church has historically thought about this. This is what we preach. This is what is in Orthodox Christianity. And so maybe that's it. Maybe he's really doing his best. And yet, Here come the Christian judges to say, hey, you got that modalism spirit.
All those discernment blogs were ready to go into action.
It's like, I mean, I feel like Stephen Furtick has caught fire for other things. And so, does he have errant theology? Maybe. I don't know. I don't sit and, over dinner with him and talk to him about these things. But with this, I'm like, I've heard other pastors do this too. And maybe it's that they haven't gone to seminary. Now, to me, this is a huge reason why pastors should be in seminary, to understand, no, it's not the shape shifting. Yeah. It is that they are three distinct persons. And how do we teach congregants that? How do we really teach what's been taught for the last 2,000 years?
Yeah. And so I think you nailed it there, in that hopefully Stephen has some people in his life that can pull him to the side in a loving way and say, hey, let me help you have a more excellent understanding of the scriptures. Let's talk about this. To me, a heretic, that label is only appropriate when the person actively and willfully teaches something that is outside the bounds of orthodoxy. Like, he's been pulled to the side. He's had the proper education, and the person persists in the error. That's when the church bishops historically would say, okay, now you are excommunicated. To excommunicate to someone is to withhold communion from them, and you're outside of the church because you're teaching something that is outside of what the church has universally taught. So I'm not ready to slap Stephen Furtick with a label of a heretic. Is what he said heresy? Technically, yes, but I'm going to believe in his heart. I'm going to believe all things in the spirit of Christian love, that he just doesn't know any better. Hopefully there's someone in his life that's more informed and can pull him to the side and have a conversation. I'm going to believe the best about him, that he's not actively denying the faith and doesn't know any better. Now, a difference with that are the Oneness Pentecostals. Oneness Pentecostals are modalists, and it's a form of Pentecostalism that they do actively teach this heresy. And that is, I would say, a church that is outside of the historic Christian faith. So Oneness Pentecostals, sometimes they're called Jesus-only Pentecostals. They are modalists.
Okay.
So if you drive down your friendly neighborhood Oneness Pentecostal church, you see them, you'll now know they have the problem of the ancient heresy of modalism.
I have never heard of a Oneness Pentecostal in my life.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Oh, T.D. Jakes is a famous Oneness Pentecostal.
Why you got to throw my uncle under the bus like Uncle James?
Sorry. I think he's repented of his error, but yeah, he comes out of the Oneness Pentecostal
I have
tradition.
never heard of this at all. But you know what? Now I'm going to go and be
Google.
like, yeah, wow. Okay. Laura Hartley says Furtick gets thrown into the WOF box by many. Now, when I saw
Word of faith.
Okay, thank you. Because I was like, WOF, Laura, what's she writing on? But that's a whole nother acronym, people. Sorry.
Oh my word.
I am a work in progress.
So Stephen Furtick, if you're out there, go watch some of my videos or take a seminary class. It'll all be okay.
I get somebody in your corner who has taken a seminary class.
Yeah, I got some great videos on the Trinity. It'll help you out. Oh, the famous water ice vapor analogy of for the Trinity. That actually could be seen as a modalist analogy, closer to modalism. That's the problem with all the analogies about the Trinity, is they all kind of, if you press them too far, take you into some heresy. So, like the egg analogy, the shell, the yolk, the white part, whatever that's called.
The egg white?
Yeah, the egg white. if you press
the
it
white
too
part
far,
of the egg.
It could be tritheism. So you want to be careful with those analogies, because those analogies are contained in this space-time continuum. So we want to kind of put God inside this space-time continuum. There's really no perfect analogy that we can come up with for the Trinity, but I think that that's actually a pointer to its true supernatural origin, and that it wasn't invented by a human. So anyways, there's that.
There's that.
Okay.
Do you have a tweet?
I do have a tweet.
Okay.
I'm going to surprise you.
There it is. Yet again.
She loves surprises. Left me hanging.
Mid-beat. Sorry. I was just, getting my... You know what? Oh, okay. Oh, I was going to read a comment, but we'll do it after.
Squirrel. Okay.
That is true.
All right. The tweet of the week. This came out today, and I thought it was very thoughtful. It's published on the Gospel Coalition website, which people know me. They know I have issues with the Gospel Coalition. But when there's something good and truthful and trustworthy, I want to point it out. So there was a great article on progressive Christianity, and kind of a unique story. This person was raised as an evangelical, kind of deconstructed his faith and became a progressive, and then reconstructed his faith after being a progressive for a while and came back to the historic Christian faith. So sort of a unique journey. So I got the article here, and I want to commend this article to people to go check out. I thought it was very well done. I don't know who this guy is, Ian Harbour, but I thought it was a great article. If you could scroll down for me, Bob, a little bit. Keep going. Keep going. And no, right. Hold on. Yeah, keep going. Keep going down. Keep going. Right. Yeah, good thing we rehearsed this. Oh no, go back up. Up. Oh, where was it? It was a great quote I wanted to read. Go back up. Okay, here it is. So he's talking about after he kind of deconstructed his faith and he became a progressive, he says, then I ran into a problem. He started listening to all these progressive Christian podcasts. He was reading The Velvet Elvis and Rob Bell's books, and he was reading...
The Velvet Elvis just sounds weird.
Yeah, it's a very famous early progressive evangelical book.
I wouldn't want Elvis regular, so why would you get Elvis in velvet?
Anywho, so he says after he had been kind of drinking from this well of ideas of progressivism for a while, he says, I ran into a problem. As I kept listening and reading, I realized I didn't have the tools to rebuild, and I wasn't receiving any of these from these voices. Every belief I held had been neatly disassembled and laid bare on the floor for examination, but there was no guidance for putting something back together. helping people deconstruct their faith without also helping put it back together is lazy, irresponsible, dangerous, and isolating. The goal of deconstruction should be greater faithfulness to Jesus, not merely self-discovery or signaling one's virtue. And I thought that was a really powerful statement, because that's what I see so often. Once people start going down this path of progressive Christianity and really deconstructing their faith, what ends up happening a lot of times is they deconstruct it so far that now it's just shattered on the ground in 1,000 pieces, and they don't know how to put it back together. So then they slip into secular humanism or atheism. And I think that is a really sad outcome of that. Now, should we, quote unquote, deconstruct our faith as in de-Americanize our faith? Yes, that is a worthy project. Let's make our faith more historic. Let's make our faith more connected to the ancient Christianity. But let's not deconstruct it to the point where we're just shattering people along the way. So that is my tweet of the week. Now, do we want to wrap up with some comments here?
That's good. Something about what you said actually makes me think, of course, because everything makes me think about critical race theory.
All roads lead to
All roads lead. That's just where my brain is at right now. But this idea of wanting to deconstruct racism and where critical race theory leads us is to, yes, let's deconstruct it, but what do we build after it's deconstructed? How do we really build unity? And there isn't a real way to truly build unity with the critical race theory framework.
Oh, that's so good.
It's always this continual work to deconstruct, but the only way to even maybe attempt at building some form of what they would call reconciliation would be for one party to continually acknowledge their wrong and sin. So there's truly no way to have a framework for something healthy and unified once you're deconstructed, so to speak.
Oh, that's so good.
One of the reasons why we can't do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's.
Are you going to make the big announcement yet?
No, I'm not.
Okay. All right. We'll just keep teasing that. All right. Theo says, has anyone seen the Lutheran satire video on the Trinity? I love that video, Theo. It's called the St. Patrick's Bad Analogies. It's on YouTube. People can go look at it. It's a little cartoon of bad analogies and how each one tries to it devolves into some heresy. It's a fun video.
I'll watch that.
Yeah. So I usually post it every St. Patrick's Day. Our friend Susanna says, my deconstruction journey was to undo all the legalism I believed in. Yeah. And I think that was that's a worthwhile journey is that's what I call kind of de-Americanizing your faith. That's part of it. And I'm honored to be part of your reconstruction journey, Susanna. That's a fun thing. Okay. We made it.
We did.
Yay. Thanks for coming on there.
Thanks for watching. Please
adventure.
Make sure to share the show.
Yeah.
Check us out on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're there. And
check out the show notes that we've got there each week. Allthethingshow.com.
You can sign up to have the show notes emailed to you directly every week.
Especially on the weeks when I make them, which was not last week yet, but I will make them.
It's coming.
It's coming. I'm a busy woman. So, if you're on Facebook, you can find our Facebook page, All the Things Show, or ATT Livestream. That's what it is.
ATT Livestream at gmail.com.
And we're on Insta. So, share the show. Let your friends know about it. And we hope that you enjoy the conversation.
Yeah. Have a great week, everybody.
Take care.
Oh, daylight savings time. Don't forget, it's my favorite time of the year. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. Oh, my gosh. No. Yes. Yes, yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.